Right now, I think Lucy is here. I don't know if Lucy's going to want to talk to us or not. Lucy is 10, and she has been going mom through a pretty tough time pretty much most of her life. Mylene, you're her mother. I'm reading in my notes, her seizure started when she was just a few weeks old, right?
Yes, at 10 weeks old, she started having seizures, yeah.
So for many years, you dealt with that where you lived. You dealt with the doctor, but then at some point, it was too much. It couldn't be dealt with that way. You ended up here at the Children's. What happened?
Yeah, so she was having daily seizures as a baby, probably 80 or more per day, and then she had 2 resection surgeries before we came here. And about in December 2022, after an EEG where we consulted because she was starting to lose her memory pretty significantly, they suggested maybe we should consult at the Children's, and that's when we came here and started our journey here. And so we started with testing in August of 2023. That's when we met Dr. Dudley. And Dr. Dudley has been great for us, and he was able to operate a 3rd resection surgery for Lucy, and she's now been 9 months seizure-free since that resection surgery.
Wow. Okay. You mentioned Dr. Dudley, who apparently is a very famous guy here. Dr. Roy Dudley, pediatric neurosurgeon. We were just talking to another family moments ago who talked about you having operated on their son, Liam, who's now 7 years old. Do you remember the case here with respect to Lucy? And
of course.
What was it? What? First of all, after being treated by a regular, you mentioned she'd been treated previously. It gets serious enough when you have to come to the Children's. You know something's up. What was it in her case?
Yeah, so Lucy had a very rare form of epilepsy, something called hemimegalencephaly. It's basically a part of the brain has an overgrowth syndrome. A part of the brain is bigger than it should, but it's very subtle. So the previous surgery she had at an outside hospital, they didn't see that area very well. It's very difficult. It's very challenging to see. So when she was referred over here, we did EEGs with Dr. Simara Tremblay. We did an MRI again, and I noticed something subtle. I had seen it before on that MRI. It looked like her occipital lobe was sort of jutting into the, sort of going across the midline to the other side of her brain. And the EEG suggested that the seizures were coming from the right side. But this didn't really make sense. So then we worked her up again, and we did some very advanced electrophysiology and advanced neuroimaging tests with labs at the Montreal Neurological Hospital, actually. So John Gottman's lab, we did a special type of EEG, having an EEG on inside the MRI. And that localized the seizures coming from the right side, from the left side. And we did magnetoencephalography, it's sort of almost like a special type of EEG that also showed that the seizures were still coming from the left side, not the right side at all. And then we looked back at the MRI and showed the MRI to some world experts at the Montreal Neurological Hospital who we work with very closely, the Bernasconi lab, Andrea and Netta Bernasconi, and they agreed that there was something very subtle but abnormal. And then we did genetic testing on the previous, we got a hold of the previous samples at the outside hospital, and we found the genetic mutation that causes this hemimegalencephaly. So we put it all together, and we found that the seizures were actually coming from the left occipital lobe, not the temporal lobe that the previous teams had thought the seizures were coming from. So then I did a surgery to resect the occipital lobe on the left side, and Lucy's been seizure-free ever since.
I mean, I'm hearing you describe this. I can't even imagine what this must have been like. First of all, just to figure out what it was. And I'm guessing as a parent, it's one thing to say your child is going to need surgery. It's another to know exactly what's going on. And basically, you were in the dark up until you got to the Children's.
Absolutely, yeah. And I still remember we were kind of in the dark at the beginning when we started doing the testing, and we were going to do a surgery where they put the electrodes directly on her skull and see how she was seizing. And I remember Dr. Dudley calling me, and I was at work in my office. I still remember being in my office and getting that call where he said, I know exactly what it is. And he explained it to me, and we were like, all right, let's go. As soon as you want to do the surgery, we'll be ready. So it worked out really well, and it was all put together within a few short months. From August to November, Dr. Dudley figured it all out. So it was really awesome.
You are the superhero. See, I told you, this is what they keep saying about you, Dr. Dudley. And you know what? I'm being flip, but the reason we're here today is I can't imagine anywhere where this kind of diagnosis would have been made as quickly as it was, and the fact that you took the extra time, consulted with people at the neuro to try to come up with something like this. If this had not happened, if you hadn't been able to necessarily diagnose what it was, what would have happened here? She'd still be suffering from seizures?
Yeah, I mean, as you heard, Lucy was having anywhere from 5 to 80 seizures per day, every day of her life. If we hadn't figured it out, and again, thank you call me a superhero, but I basically what I described as a super team. I mentioned 4 or 5 people in different labs in 2 different hospitals that figured this out. thanks to that, putting that puzzle together, we solved the puzzle.
Yeah.
But if we hadn't, she'd be having seizures now. She'd be continuing to have seizures. She already failed medication. She has a vagal nerve stimulator, which didn't really help her very much. This is a spectacular case, and without that group of people and the technology and the advancements we have here, I don't think there's anywhere else in Canada, certainly in Eastern Canada, that could do the same thing for a patient that we did in Lucy's case and that we do for other children in similar situations. That's the miracle here, I think.
As I'm watching Lucy sit here, apparently she likes chocolate.
She does.
Yeah. What's the prognosis now going forward? So you say we've eliminated the, these particular episodes. Is this clear from here on in, or do we know?
So it's an excellent question. There's always a question mark there. I think if a patient goes 1 year without having seizures after a surgery like that, that's a really good milestone. If they go 2 years, even better. The seizures can come back in the future when patients have epilepsy surgery. The thing is, in her case, like I've alluded to, she was having 80 seizures per day, and now she hasn't had any in 9 months. That's a really, really good prognostic factor. And actually, we looked at the borders of the resection. So I resected that occipital lobe, and we looked at the borders, and we found the malformation. A focal cortical dysplasia is what it's called. It's a malformation in the brain. But the borders didn't have the malformation. So it looks like we've resected the pathology completely in her case. I think she has a very, very good chance of never having seizures again in her life.
Mom, what has it been like for her? I mean, she's being very quiet here. Is she acting as you would hope she would? I mean, is everything okay now without these episodes?
Yeah, she's still readapting to certain things, but she is completely active. She's, resumed her hockey, her cheerleading, her other sports activities. She's very, very active little girl, still getting her language back and still learning some steps, but doing very well.
Just adorable, too, by the way. I understand, Dr. Dudley, you wanted to give a shout-out here to somebody. Is that right?
Yeah, I wanted to give a shout-out. I want more and more people to donate to this fantastic cause. And I know the St. Anne de Bellevue rugby team won the Quebec Championship last weekend. So all those guys and girls are still in a good mood, I'm sure, a few days later. So I want those guys to all donate today to the Montreal Children's Hospital and the Radiothon.
All right, it's on you, St. Anne de Bellevue rugby team. This is guys and girls. This is mixed, co-ed kind of?
Yeah, so there's 2 guys teams won the championship. The under 16 girls team won the championship. So those players and their families are probably still in a good mood. I hope they can donate today.
That's what you have to do. Make the phone ring, 514-939-KIDS, 514-939-5437. Let's raise the money. Let's raise the total. So when we come back here in a little over an hour from now, we can tell you we set another record for the amount of money raised here at the Caring for Kids Radiothon. Guys, thank you so much. Good to meet you. Dr. Dudley, thank you for coming by. We appreciate it. And thank you for being that superhero. I'm sure everybody feels the same way who's ever had anything to do with you.